As you know, if you had seen my previous confession video, that I'm not exactly the most social person in the world. And despite not being a very social person, I can recall a lot of people that I've been associated with throughout my life. I remember there was this lady and this old guy who lived like down the street from us when we were living in our first small house. And one of our other neighbors was this Hispanic family that lived in the small house. One time I got to play with them every couple of times I got the chance. And the second time we moved to that house with the big playroom, there were some other kids that we got to associate with that were in our neighborhood, one of which became a friend as I moved to another house for the third time. And since I've moved to that third house, I haven't really associated with too many people. I mean, I still got that friend that I met while I was living in the second house, basically because he had a sister that was friends with my own sister. And right now I've got some really cool neighbors, the Birdmans. They've taken pictures of when I was in a school play, and they've also given us some nice stuff for on Christmas and on our birthdays. And once in a while, when we get the chance, they actually take me on a little trip for the day. Like we went to a lighthouse, to a museum, to this cheeseburger restaurant, even to the Jelly Belly factory. That was awesome. I wonder when I can get a chance to do that with them again. But regardless of all that, the people that I feel like I've been associated with the longest, if you're not including people that I've had to put up with while I was going to school, would be my family. In the beginning, it was me and my mom and my dad. Later down the line, I had a younger sister. And in a couple of years after my sister's birth, mom and dad got divorced. And that's when we started living in that smaller house, when we started going through poverty and we had a hard time providing for ourselves. Uncle Bobby lived with us for a while. He helped provide for us before he moved to his own place. And of course, eventually after that, Mom started hanging out with Robert that she met from high school. He started living with us, and then after a while, he brought in his son all the way from Texas, and the five of us were having such a great time together. And then eventually we moved to that third house with the playroom and everyone having their own room. That's when things were starting to get really, really great. If I don't have to include all the crappy times I had at school. Eventually, something happened between Josh and Mom and Robert, and he left us and went back to Texas. And a little while after that, Robert's mother passed away. That's when we moved into this very, very old house. And we have been in this very old house for the last 4 years or so. Also, in that time, we got two dogs. Both of them are golden retrievers. The first one was a female named Maddie, and she is just such a good dog. And the second one is really annoying and a really big handful. He's a male, and he's way younger than Maddie. His name is Genghis. Bob gave him that name for some reason. As of now, it's basically the six of us me, my sister, my mom, Robert, who's become my stepdad, and our two dogs. It sounds pretty simple until you go into the absolute long term history of my family and all the stuff that's happened between us up to this point. But before that, I want to talk about other family members. I want to talk about my aunts and uncles and cousins and my grandparents and possibly my nieces and nephews. Yeah, I'm an uncle. There's the Mescalados, consisting of my Aunt Jackie, Uncle Danny, Brittany Marino, and Nikki. Recently, my cousin Brittany got married, and I'm going to save that for later. It's very, very special. The Mescalado family has always been amongst our closer relatives. And Jackie is one of my mom's sisters, and she has a really, really complicated history with my mom. Sometimes they would get into so much trouble. Sometimes they would just mess around. Sometimes they ended up beating each other up. Mom always thought that Aunt Jackie was so rotten and spoiled that she got away with so much crap. But you know what? Years later, and even when I was younger, as I was growing up, they seemed to get along very well. So, yeah, my Aunt Jackie is pretty cool. I remember a couple of times after I stopped going to school that she would take me out to dinner. There was this really, really great Italian place. I forgot what it was called. I would usually talk to Aunt Jackie about some things, and then she would take me back home. I would thank her for taking me out to dinner, and this was something that we did every Monday for a while. She works at this. Cologne place. I'm not sure. Let me see. Let me go get it. Uh, Dior Home. Um, oh no, wait. Dior Home. Um, uh, she works at this place where you get Dior Homme cologne and aftershave, and she actually got promoted recently, so she's got a really good job. And you know what? Something that she told me she would do every once in a while, and she even did this recently as a Christmas present, she would get me aftershave. I didn't even have to pay for it as long as I didn't use it too often. Um, she would give me aftershave whenever I need it, and that's very nice of her. And it's really nice that she's willing to spare if she has so much in reserve. And for as long as I have been associated with Aunt Jackie, I know that she has been happily married with Uncle Danny. And Uncle Danny is a pretty cool guy. He is basically a plumber at this school that he worked with when he was friends with Dad. I don't know much about his job, but I know that we've had some nice times together too, whenever we have a get together at Thanksgiving and Christmas. We usually do the fist bump, and he really is a pretty chill guy. He always has this calm and very relaxed tone about him. So, personally, I think he's a pretty cool guy. I don't associate with him too much. At least I don't see him as much as some other relatives. But from what I've experienced, he's nice. Earlier years of my relationship with Brittany, Marino, and Nikki were a little troubling at first. At first, I would get into fights with them. I would kind of disapprove of things that they do. I would sometimes get in trouble. I would get grounded whenever we bickered and got into a fight. But nothing too bad. Nothing really horrible from anything that I remembered. As far as I know, now they're all doing their own thing. They're living their own lives, and it's really cool. I recently learned that little Nikki is actually heading to college to become a doctor or something like that, nursing, and that's going to be a really good paying job. I hope she does really well, little Nikki. Man, she grew up so quickly, and it just feels like she grew up so quickly. Like, One minute I'm calling her baby Nikki because I didn't want to confuse her with Uncle Nikki, and now she's Nikki, almost 19 years old, and she's going to be heading off to college soon. That's great. Marino, he was always, at least recent years, he's always been a really humorous guy. Sometimes he would be crude, but he is pretty chill. He's a really big fan of baseball. He always collects all this stuff in his room, and he has all these cards, and he has these pictures. One time, he even got to throw the first pitch at a game. Mom was really upset that she missed that. Um, and recently, he's been dating this girl that I befriended while I was at high school. She's a really nice girl, and I'm really glad that those two are getting along. Brittany was particularly kind of weird at first because we did things that were kind of really, really strange. It's really, really strange that you probably wouldn't believe it if I told you. But she was fairly curious. She wanted to know a little bit about me through my mom, and she would know things. And as we got older and we associated ourselves better, we've had a nice relationship. She recently, after she got married, she moved into this amazing house. It is a really, really good house. It has a really good living room, a room where you watch television on this big screen. It has a really big, really good basement. It has a lot of room in the kitchen, several bedrooms, several guests' rooms. There's an upstairs where they probably sleep. And they have really good bathrooms. They have really good sinks and really good soap dispensers. They even have these little boxes where they sort out Q-tips and cotton boxes for whatever. It's a really, really fancy house. And it's time for the big surprise. Recently I got a Christmas card from Brittany and her husband, and it said, Merry Christmas from our soon-to-be family of 3. I was so excited to find out that she was pregnant. She was gonna be a mother. I literally hugged my mother. She was standing right there when I opened the card. I was just hopping up and down like a little kid. I was just so filled with joy. And oh man, it was amazing. It was amazing news. One of the best things that happened to me last year. I immediately gave her a phone call and I congratulated her and we had a really nice talk. And I was just so happy for her. And I know she's going to be a really, really great mother. In order to afford that house, though, they have to work a lot. Like, my cousin has a job and her husband has a job too. She has to work as a barber. She does haircuts. And her husband, JR, I kind of forgot. I think it was fireman. I forgot. I'd have to ask him later on. And that's a basic short summary of my experience with the Mescalados. I don't remember too much of my connection with them when I was younger, but I do remember a fair number of things that have happened in recent years, and it's all just such great stuff. Uncle Nicky and his family is another family that I'm more associated with than most of my other relatives. And as far as I know, at least from what I hear from Mom, it's pretty mixed. I remember when I was littler that Uncle Nicky and Aunt Michelle had at least 2 daughters, Victoria and Samantha. And they had this really big house, one of the best houses that I've ever seen. It had so much room and so much space for so much stuff. It was just awesome. You could have an entire family stay there for when they ever want to have a get together or spend the night. And we spent the night over there one time, as I do remember. We would celebrate Thanksgiving in that house, and it was just so great. We had all of this great food, and there was so much room in the basement for us to do all sorts of things, whether it was looking through movies, playing with some toys, reading some books. There were also these electronic machines that they always had for us to play with. There was this electronic bowling game and the electronic dart throwing game. It was always so much fun. They even had this really wide backyard where they had this trampoline, and it was always great. It was always so great to jump on that trampoline, and we always had some really fun times when we were there. It was a really great house, but then something happened, and the bank foreclosed on their home, and that really sucked. So they had to move away over to this other house, and basically, before they moved, though, Uncle Nikki and Aunt Michelle had two more daughters, and that was Sarah and Audrey. And seeing them now, it is amazing how much they have grown up over the years. Samantha, Sarah, and Audrey were always so playful and so much fun to be around, even if they were a little bit of scamps sometimes. I remember this time that Sarah managed to pin me to the ground, and she just started whacking me with this stick. It kinda hurt, but it wasn't too severe, and I quickly got over it. You know, jokingly, when I recalled that memory to them this last Christmas, they said Sarah was a monster, and it was just so funny remembering all of the antics that those three got into. Audrey was the youngest, and she was just like a little baby when I first got to interact with her. She was so cute and adorable, and I always just had so much fun getting to tickle her feet and trying to make her laugh, give her a smile. Just so many fun things that you would want to do with, a little kid or a little baby. And seeing them grow up so much, seemingly so quickly over the years, it really is amazing how much they've grown. Samantha, Sarah, and Audrey are just so adorable, and they just have so much fun whenever they're around. And it's really great whenever I get a chance to, just shake their hand, ask how they've been doing, play a game with them. It's pretty cool. Uncle Nicky and Aunt Michelle have been pretty cool too. Whenever we have our get togethers, they always hosted everything. Sometimes we would go to someone else's place and they would also, they would visit us and they would celebrate the holidays with us. When we were there, we always played this game called Tongue, where you have to get the highest value of three matching card types. And I always got so annoyed, so mad when I lost. But, I was just a younger, dumber kid at the time. Uncle Nicky and Aunt Michelle have always been pretty pleasant and nice to be around. Sometime last month, I got to spend the night with them years after their older house was foreclosed and they had to move into this new one. It's not as big, but it's still a fairly nice house, and there's enough space for them, enough room and board. Even though I was highly disappointed that we didn't get to eat the pizza that they planned on having, we still got to go to this trampoline place. It was a really cool place where you just get to jump around on stuff. And my favorite attraction was they actually had a little dodgeball arena. They actually saw me playing from the sidelines, my aunt and uncle and my three cousins. They actually were very impressed with how I played. I was able to dodge all the shots and throw some good strikes, and I got some people on the opposing side out. I had so much fun that I actually felt better about not getting to eat that pizza. And Uncle Nicky told me if I ever wanted to make time to hang out with him and his family again, then I could do it whenever I have time. And I really would like to find time to do that again sometime soon. We were just having such a blast. I didn't even think that they lived in an area that had a place like that. It was so much fun. Yeah. And, of course, someone I have been reluctant to talk about was their oldest daughter, Victoria. And, in the last couple of years, it's been really, really difficult for her. Admittedly, Samantha, Sarah, and Audrey are only half sisters to Victoria because I think it was either Uncle Nicky or Aunt Michelle that remarried. And Victoria never fully coped with the divorce that one of her parents had. I remembered when I was younger, when I was associated with her, she had a boyfriend in school, and she was getting some nice grades. And then, out of nowhere, I started hearing about the trouble that she started getting into with Uncle Nicky and Aunt Michelle, stuff that I really don't want to go into too much detail about. It got to the point where she had to go to this rehabilitation center to get her help because she was becoming this serious juvenile delinquent. Whenever I get a chance to revisit Uncle Nicky and Aunt Michelle and their three other daughters, I'd usually ask them how Victoria was doing, and I was always hoping that she'd be okay. And they would say that she's fine, but they always told me that they can only hope that things would get better for her. And whenever I think about it, I still kind of worry about it. I hope that she's doing fine. And it must have been really hard knowing that their own daughter was going through these really hard and troubled times. I still remember those arguments that Mom would get into on the phone over Uncle Nicky's and Aunt Michelle's interactions with the rest of the family, that they stopped visiting us, they stopped interacting with us regularly, they started isolating themselves from the rest of the family. And it really is a shame because they seem like a really nice family. And I've never really had any horrible experiences with them. And I remember any bad experience that I might have had was out of my own selfishness and incompetence. I guess if anything, I wish that they would see us more often so that all the stuff that they started getting into arguments with over the phone and stuff like that would stop, because I really don't think that's fair. I don't think it's fair for that to happen to them after they've been such a nice family and we had so many fun times together, especially whenever we got to see each other on Thanksgiving and Christmas, and even all the times that they would come to mine and my sister's birthday. As far as I know, I have had good memories with Uncle Nicky's family, and whatever it is that's causing Mom to have problems with them, I hope it subsides in the future because I just don't think that it's right. That, Uncle Nicky and Aunt Michelle had to go through so many problems, like their daughter Victoria started having these drug problems, and the bank foreclosing on their first house. It's all really hard stuff, and I'd imagine that it's made things pretty hard for their family. But from what I've heard, they're still getting by okay. They're doing fine. I just hope Victoria is doing okay. There's other relatives that I admit that I'm not too familiar with because I don't see them all that often. I know there's others like Aunt Carol and Aunt Nora, But the thing is, we do have a reasonably big family, and the only times we really get to spend any time together are during holidays. So I don't see them too often to remember their names very well. So I guess that's another thing about me. I don't remember people very well if I don't see them often enough. There's also my grandma and grandpa, who didn't get along very much, but they stuck around long enough for my mom to be born along with her siblings. Firstly, my grandpa started living in Indiana since he separated from grandma, and we don't see him too often, only like a couple of times a year. There were a couple of times when we went to his house for Christmas, we would have a big get together and everyone would be there. We would have spaghetti, that awesome gravy. My heritage is Italian. At first, he lived in a small cabin in the woods until he finally moved to this really peaceful neighborhood. And it is such a great neighborhood to live in. Like, everyone there is a senior citizen, and they are all very welcoming people. Like, they're so polite, they have really good manners, and they take very good care of themselves. Grandpa, for a while now, hasn't really been catching up enough to take care of himself necessarily. So, he has been living with a partner for a while named Carol, and she's just a really nice woman. She's just really good. And the two have a really nice time together. Like, they eat, they go golfing, they go out to dinner, they watch movies. Their place is really relaxing, and whenever I visit, it's just really relaxing. We just sit around the house, enjoying ourselves, doing our own activities, but we would still get together and do something. Like, we would go out to eat, we would go see a movie, we would drive around for a little. We would even we went to this fancy restaurant that his friend owned, and they had some really great fettuccine Alfredo. It was amazing. It was this really good Italian restaurant, and then the restaurant just closed. Like, I never got a chance to taste their food again. It was basically a once in a lifetime experience. I did enjoy it while it lasted, though. And when I just get to spend time with Grandpa, whether it's helping him take down his Christmas decorations, or going out there during the summer to play golf or go to the theaters to see something, I generally enjoy myself while I'm with Grandpa. We do some nice things, and we have some nice talks. We have some personal time together, and we really connect. I suppose if I could say something that kind of rubs me the wrong way about my grandfather, it's that, well, for someone who grew up in the 1940s, he was pretty homophobic and racist. And I don't necessarily blame Grandpa for having that mindset, and he doesn't really take it that far, from what I remember or from what I've heard. And it's not his fault because it was practically the norm at the time to be against anything that wasn't heterosexual or completely white. It was just this mindset that America was developing at the time, and he is a grandparent. I think that it was a given that there was a pretty good chance that he would have developed that mindset because it was just something that a lot of Americans were setting for themselves. And it's never like it ever got in the way of all the good times that I've had with him. Technically, it does make him a bigot, but I have had a lot of good times with Grandpa, and I can't really stay mad at him for that. Before he started hanging out with Carol, there was this other woman, JJ, that he associated himself with very well. The two got along together so well, and then she got cancer and she passed away. I think I remember Grandpa was really, really broken up by it, and I was pretty sad myself. I took it pretty hard. It is nice that Grandpa found someone to hang out with and be friends with again because I mean, he really shouldn't have to be by himself. I mean, he does kind of need someone around the house to help him out because he's not as fit as he used to be, even though he's still really good at playing golf. Um, despite his age, despite their age, my grandparents are actually very healthy for their age. Like, they can walk around the house and they can do things. Like, Grandpa, he does go out for golf, and Grandma, while she can't drive at night anymore, can still be a fun part of our get togethers. And speaking of my grandmother, she is just an amazing woman. She has been through so much, and she has so many great stories to talk about from when she was a kid. Every once in a while, we would go visit her, and I would just sit there and I would listen to all of the great things that she had to talk about when she was a kid. Amongst all the stories that she's told me, one of my favorite ones was how she beat cancer twice, and that is such a blessing. She is such a blessed woman, and she is very lucky. She tells me every morning and every night, when she gets up and before she goes to sleep, she just thanks God for all of the great chances that she has been given, that she got to have her own children and that she got to have the grandchildren that she has now, and that she's going to be a great grandmother soon, provided by Brittany's baby that's expected in June. Just getting to learn more about my grandmother and all of the things that she's been through, they're always such nice experiences. And there are understandably the times when she talks about how different the world is now compared to when she grew up, and it is understandable that she would feel this way because so much has changed since she was growing up as a kid. It hardly makes any sense at all to her, and something that she really doesn't like is youth that use the F word and people who just have a short temper and yell a lot. She always tells me that I am a smart kid and that I shouldn't waste my time on trivial things. Of course, if Grandma ever knew about my origin as a YouTube content creator, I just don't want to think about it. Basically, my grandmother is a great person, and she even has stories about the time that she shared with her brother. My great uncle Tommy, who was a war veteran and passed away from cancer before I was born. I was actually named after him. And I think, in a way, that's a really, really special way to carry on his spirit, that I was just named after Grandma's favorite brother, my great uncle. My mother's side of the family has gone through a few tragic things too, like the death of my Uncle Michael, who was a Santa Claus one year. I will never forget the night that we were at Aunt Jackie's and I actually got that Power Rangers Lightspeed Rescue video game that I really wanted, and he was the Santa Claus that dressed up and gave it to me. It was amazing. One day, Mom told us about how his car got hit by a train, and he was put in a coma for about a month before he finally passed away. And that really sucked. I remember that his son was featured on a special where he talked about how his daddy was hit by a train. He never saw it coming. The lights that were signaling the train just wouldn't work for some reason. Which, even then, how would you still get hit by a train? I mean, you could hear it coming with the sound of the train on the tracks with the wheels and the whistle going out. I I have a feeling that at the time that it happened, it must have hit everyone really hard. And then there was some time last year when Uncle Bobby, the Uncle Bobby who was living with us in that small house when Mom and Dad first got divorced, he ended up drowning and he washed up on the shore. He wasn't breathing, and we attended his funeral. It was really hard for Uncle Bobby's mother. Uncle Bobby was actually a pretty cool guy too. He There were a couple of times where he got this eye injury at work, and I always remembered he liked playing this harmonica. He was always so good at playing the harmonica, and at his funeral service, there was actually a picture of him playing the harmonica. I took a picture of it. It's still on my phone. Yeah, it's it was really sad that he left us so soon, and that I never got another chance to I don't know, just talk to him or something. It really sucks. Of course, with me having a mom and a dad, I have two sides to the family, and it's not just mom's side of the family, it's dad's side too. There's my Uncle Bob, my Aunt Nancy, my Uncle Mario, my Aunt Sylvia, Cousin Danny, and Cousin Michelle, who are not to be confused with my aunt and uncle. There was Victoria, and there was Alex. There was also Uncle Manuel and Uncle Raudel, and all of my Mexican aunts and uncles and cousins and nieces and nephews. There's my abuelito and my abuelita, may she rest in peace. I think it's because we were in such small contact with Dad at the time since the divorce. I don't really associate with my dad's side of the family as much as I do my mother's. The one I seem to be connected with the most in terms of my dad's side of the family is my Uncle Bob, Aunt Nancy, my cousin Danny, and my cousin Victoria, all part of the Diaz family. And by the sound of that, you probably figure out that I have a Mexican heritage alongside my Italian heritage. I've had experiences with Uncle Bob's family, both the good and the bad. I admit that there were times that we didn't always get along, especially the times when I felt kind of annoyed that I was being held back in my photo op when I was at Disney World with them. But to be fair, I always still had a nice time with them. There were times when I spent the night at their house, and I just really, really have a nice time when I'm there. I would play games, watch movies, and I would get into all sorts of crazy antics with Victoria and Danny. Victoria, as annoying as she can be sometimes, she is just so adorkable. She can be funny, she can really stand out, and an amazing thing is she is shorter than me and 5 years younger than me, and she is just so physically strong. Like, she can carry me over her back or something like that. And she's also done pretty good in school. Um, at first, she grew up in Mexico a lot, so we had a hard time understanding each other at first, but the way things are now, we get along fairly nicely. And then there's my cousin Danny. Oh my god, he's practically my favorite. He's such a wisecracker and he's really funny at times. I don't see him as much anymore because he has a job and he does have to work a lot. But whenever he finds time to go to the house whenever I'm visiting, it's pretty good between the two of us. We talk about some times that we've been going through since we last saw each other, and he really seems to have a fascination for tattoos, like the X-Men characters and some Star Wars characters. He just has them all across his legs and his arms. I never really liked tattoos myself. I thought that they hurt too much, that they would sting you and it could lead to some skin infection. A pastime of ours is that we actually did this crazy crossover. It was the adventures of Luke Skywalker and Spider-Man. We just took his action figures and we messed around with them so much. We had such a great time just messing around with all of those action figures. There was this one time that I got really um well I ended up breaking one of his Wolverine action figures, and even if it was years ago and we've both gotten better since then, I still feel bad about how selfish I was being, that I ended up breaking his Wolverine action figure. I'm still waiting for the chance that I can somehow make it up to him. If I get a collector's Wolverine action figure on the internet, or if I find one at a flea market, or just something really, really nice to replace the one that broke, I would really, I really hope that I get to do it soon, because it's something that I should have done years ago. There were times that we got into arguments and fights and they were pretty boiled up, but we always found a way to get over it in the end, and we're back to our old ways. Him waiting for the next summer where he can scare me into jumping into the pool before he gets the chance to toss me in there himself. Uh, it is so enjoyably annoying that I end up being scared into jumping into the pool before he would do it himself. And there was also the time when I was doing the ice bucket challenge. I was counting to three, and I said on three he would pour the bucket of ice on me. So I said I was counting one, and then he automatically goes three, and I'm just soaked in that ice water. It was awesome. I think it's still somewhere. I might have to upload it someday just to see how funny it was. I admit, it was never perfect, the time that I would spend with Danny and Victoria and my Uncle Bob and Aunt Nancy, but considering all the things that have happened to me up to this point, and in comparison with experiences that I've had with other family members, it was pretty good. I still have fun times when I go there now. I would find time to watch a movie and I would get into a silly antic with Victoria and Danny if he was able to go there. He's got this really cool car now, like, it was just so awesome. Uh, yeah, I have a pretty big family tree, even in this generation. And I spend so much time talking about my other relatives that I never really made time to talk about the ones that I live with in a household and every 2 weeks an apartment. You know what? Maybe I'll just make that for a separate video. For now, I just want to make sure that the length of this video doesn't get too long, and I will continue to talk about the family that I live with, them and all the dysfunction that has occurred with them. But that's a story for another day. So until then, thank you for watching and take care of yourselves. MisAnthro Pony, over and out.